Hello, beautiful people. I am Annette C, and welcome back to my channel. Um, I am coming on real quick because I wanted to give a quick testimony. I want to start sharing a lot of the things that the Lord has done for me. I remember years ago, and this was years ago, like I want to say like over 10 years ago. So maybe like back in 2014, 2015. I remember when I was just starting to realize, like I was having like dreams and visions and stuff. And I remember at the time I had this vision, and I remember in this vision I had was sitting like in a cubicle, and I had stood up from the cubicle, like from wherever I was, and I like looked, like I stood up and I looked around, and as I looked around, I could see like I was in this office, but I could see like the details of the office, like it was like it was like cubicles in the middle, and then surrounding the office were glass surrounding our office was glass offices, like small ones. And I just remember seeing it. It was like a vision of it, like a glimpse. And I remember that. And I remember at the time I was working at a company, and that wasn't the way that my office was set up. So I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, well, maybe this is the job like I'm gonna get, or this is the job that I need to go to. And I believe at that time I was actually interviewing, like I was looking for a new job. And so I remember as I was going to like these different interviews, I was looking at the office setup, and I was like trying to compare to see if it matched the vision that I saw. And I remember there was one company where it kind of resembled, like I kind of was like, maybe this is it, but it didn't turn out. And of course, none of those jobs I ever got, right? And so fast forward to years later, I remember last year when I moved to my new job, at my new company. And I remember being there, and this was like months after I had started. So I was already there for like months now. And one day I was at work, and I happened to stand up from my desk. And when I stood up from my desk, I looked out, and I remember the vision that I had, right? And as I'm in my actual office and I'm looking around, and I remember, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the vision that I had over 10 years ago. And I'm like, and this was like, yes, years, right? And so I'm sitting and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I'm literally looking at the same vision. Like this is what I saw in my vision over 10 years ago. And so I'm sharing this testimony to keep you encouraged, to let you know that when people say that our time is not like God's, it is not like God's. Like God already knows exactly what our future holds. And sometimes he will allow you to see glimpses of this. Like he will give you visions. He will give you dreams. He will, sometimes tell you things to keep you encouraged. And that is why it's so important for you to make sure that you know that God, if he says something, he's going to do it. If he shows you something, and if it comes from him, it is going to happen. Now, the when is not up to us. The time frame is not up to us. That is on the Lord, because our time and his time is two totally different things, right? Like a year to us is probably like a minute to the Lord. And so we can never put a time frame on God and his promises. So just like I told you, I had this vision back in like 2014, 2015. I didn't end up being in it until last year. What is that? 2024. That's almost 10 years later. And you know what it reminded me of? The story of Joseph, right? And the story of Joseph in Genesis, where this young guy who was put into the pit because of his brothers, and then he was sold into slavery because of his brothers. And not only that, and he also started off having dreams, right? He had a dream that his family, his brothers, they bowed to him, and he told them this dream, and they were jealous, and they sold him into slavery. And from him going into slavery, he was then arrested and put in jail. And between the time that he was put in a pit to him going into jail, he ended up being able to stand in front of the most powerful man in Egypt, which is Pharaoh, and get the opportunity to interpret his dream, right? And the time frame from Joseph, when he was sold into slavery, until that time that he stood in front of Pharaoh, was about 13 years, I believe, because it says that Joseph was 17 years old when he was sold into slavery. He didn't stand in front of Pharaoh until he was like 31 years old. And so what is that? 13 years? 13 years of him going through all of that, right? 13 years of him being in the dumps, being treated as a slave, being treated at, being in slavery, right? Being a slave, all of that for him to then finally end up in front of one of the most powerful men in Egypt and become free, right? Because remember, once he interpreted Pharaoh's dream, Pharaoh was like, you know what? We need someone who is going to be able to implement this interpretation, this system, this strategy that you have, you were able to interpret, that came from the Lord. And so we need someone who's able to do it. And there's no one more capable than you, Joseph. And so I'm going to make you, and I'm just paraphrasing, I'm going to make you my number 2. And you are going to, handle, because remember, Egypt was in a famine. There was a famine that was coming, and that was what Joseph interpreted from the dream. They were going to have 7 years of, excess of great, excess food and everything. And then they were going to have 7 years of a famine. And so the Lord was able to help Joseph interpret Pharaoh's dream and give him strategy on how to combat the famine that they were about to have in Egypt. And so that was the reason that he was able to go from being in jail, being a slave, to now being free and being the second most powerful man in Egypt under Pharaoh. And so I say all that to say, the time frame of when Joseph was in jail and when he was as a slave, all of those years, I'm sure, remember, he had the dream. Remember, he had the dream before he was sold into slavery. So he must have been, they said he was sold into slavery, he was like 17 years old. So it was around that time that he had that dream that his family and them was going to bow to him. He didn't end up standing in front of Pharaoh and becoming number 2 in Egypt, to where his family ended up bowing before him till he was like 31 and up. That's 13 years. That's years went by for him to actually see the dream that he was given come to fruition. And so this is what I'm saying to you, is that sometimes the Lord will give you a dream. He will show you a vision. He will tell you something. He will give you a promise, and it won't come to pass right away. It may not happen in a year. It may not happen in a few months. It may not happen in a few weeks. You may have to wait on it, and the wait may be long, but it's during that wait that God will build up your confidence. He will build up your character. He will help you to become who he needs you to be, so that when that vision, when that dream, whenever it is that comes to fruition, you will be able to handle it. You will be able to steward it. Had Joseph not went through all of the things that he went through, when he gained all of that power overnight, he might have been a different person. He might not have been able to handle that, all that pressure,